The letter smelled faintly of old cologne and regret. Maybe that was his final act of cruelty, making me remember him every time I unfolded the damn paper. There were 12 items on that list, written in neat cursive, each one a bullet point of my supposed failures. Didn't listen. Forgot anniversaries. Was afraid to hold my hand in public. The last one simply said, didn't love me enough. Ethan Reed had never been good at love, or at least that's what his ex, Brandon, made sure he believed. When Brandon left him 6 months ago, he didn't just break off handed Ethan that list like a court sentence. And Ethan, being the kind of man who turned guilt into mission, decided to make amends. Not to Brandon, but to himself. So he started doing every single thing on the list. But life had a cruel sense of humor because the first person to notice was Lucas Grant, the new teacher who'd moved next door. Lucas was the kind of guy who smiled too easily. The kind of guy small towns whispered about, young, handsome, with a past no one could quite piece together. He drove an old blue pickup, wore flannel like it was religion, and somehow managed to make everyone feel like they were being seen for the first time. Ethan met him one cold morning in late November when his dog ran across Lucas's yard. I think he likes you, Ethan muttered, breath misting in the air, as Lucas crouched to pet the golden retriever wagging at his feet. Lucas glanced up with that soft, amused smile. Guess he has good taste. And just like that, the quiet ache in Ethan's chest shifted subtle, dangerous, like a match striking dry wood. Ethan didn't mean to fall into old habits. He didn't mean to care. He told himself Lucas was just a distraction, someone to fill the silence Brandon left behind. But Lucas didn't fit into any of Ethan's old patterns. He didn't demand or accuse or make Ethan feel small. Instead, he listened. When Ethan spoke, Lucas looked at him like every word mattered. They started spending time together, first coffee, then long walks, then dinners that stretched into laughter and shared silence. Ethan didn't even notice when the list reappeared in his life until one night. As Lucas was cleaning up, he found it folded on the counter. What's this? Lucas asked, eyes skimming the page. Ethan's heart stuttered. Nothing. Just a reminder. Lucas frowned softly. A reminder of what you did wrong. Ethan nodded. Lucas folded the paper carefully, placed it back on the counter and said, maybe it's time you start writing a new list. But healing never comes cleanly. It started with small things, Ethan hesitating to hold Lucas's hand at the diner, flinching when someone looked too long. The town wasn't unkind, but it wasn't kind either. People stared. Whispers followed. One evening, as they walked home from the grocery store, an older man from town spat near their feet and muttered, disgusting. Ethan froze. His pulse thundered in his ears, a flashback of every fight, every accusation from Brandon echoing inside him. You're ashamed of me. Lucas stood tall, voice calm but firm. You got a problem? The man scoffed and walked away, but Ethan saw it shift in Lucas's shoulders, the quiet anger beneath the calm. Later that night, Lucas said quietly, you can't keep hiding, Ethan. Not from them. Not from me. Ethan's voice cracked. I just don't want you to get hurt because of me. Lucas smiled, sad and soft. Maybe that's not your choice to make. For weeks, the tension sat between them like an uninvited guest. Ethan threw himself into fixing things, flowers, small gifts, even learning to cook Lucas's favorite meals. Each gesture ticked another box on the old list, but none of it healed what was breaking inside him. Until one snowy night in December, when the list finally tore. They were at Lucas's cabin, a quiet place by the frozen lake. The fireplace crackled. The world outside was silent. Lucas handed Ethan a cup of cocoa, then took a deep breath. I think you're trying to love me like a repair project, he said softly. But I'm not broken, Ethan. You are. And that's okay. But you can't keep proving something to a man who isn't here anymore. The words hit like ice. Ethan didn't speak for a long time. Then he whispered, I thought if I did it right this time, I'd stop hating myself. Lucas reached out, fingers brushing Ethan's jaw. Maybe you should start by forgiving yourself instead of trying to impress a ghost. The next morning, Ethan woke before sunrise. The lake glowed pale blue beneath a sheet of frost. He stepped outside barefoot, the list in his hand. One by one, he read the words again, his breath fogging in the cold air. Then he tore it in half, then in quarters, until the paper drifted like snowflakes into the wind. He didn't hear Lucas step behind him until arms slid around his waist. "What are you doing?" "Letting go," Ethan said. "Finally." Lucas smiled against his shoulder. "Good. Now we can start our own list." Ethan turned, his eyes catching the sunrise breaking through the clouds. Yeah. Number 1 didn't be afraid to hold my hand. So he did. But the world doesn't always forgive easily. When word spread through the town, Ethan's construction business started losing clients. Anonymous messages showed up in his inbox, threats, silence where there used to be work. Lucas offered to help, but Ethan pushed him away again, old instincts returning. "You don't get it," Ethan snapped one night. "This is my life here. My reputation." Lucas's jaw tightened. "And what am I, Ethan? A secret you're protecting." "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" The fight spiraled, words sharp and heavy. By the end, Lucas walked out into the snow without looking back. Ethan stood in the empty house, the sound of the door slamming echoing through the walls. He'd done it again, broken something good. And for the first time, he didn't have a list to fix it. He didn't see Lucas for 3 weeks. Not until the annual Winter Lights Festival. The whole town gathered downtown, streets glowing with lanterns, the air thick with the smell of cider and cinnamon. Ethan almost didn't go, but something in him, stubborn, hopeful, maybe desperate, pulled him there. He saw Lucas near the fountain, laughing with a group of kids, his smile bright even under the freezing air. For a long time, Ethan just watched. Then he walked forward, hands shaking. "Lucas," he said, voice barely above the music. Lucas turned, and for a moment, something flickered in his eyes, hurt, then warmth. "You came." "Yeah, I figured. I owed you a new list." Lucas blinked. "A new what?" Ethan pulled out a small folded paper. "Number 1, he said. Love without fear. Number 2, he continued. Show up, always." Lucas smiled. "And number 3? Ethan took his hand. "Never let go." Lucas laughed softly. "That's a good start." And for the first time in years, Ethan realized the list wasn't about making things right with someone else. It was about learning how to love without shame, without apology. The lights shimmered around them, music swelling, the crowd cheering as fireworks lit the sky. Lucas leaned closer, eyes shining. "This time," he whispered, "you did everything right." Ethan smiled, tears hot in the cold air. "Yeah, guess I finally found someone worth breaking the rules for." Lucas grinned. "Then let's make a new rule." "What's that?" "Don't stop loving me, no matter what." And as the first snow of the night began to fall, Ethan kissed him beneath the golden lights, the world around them fading into warmth and laughter. The morning after the Winter Lights Festival felt different. The snow hadn't stopped all night, blanketing the small town in white silence, but inside Ethan's chest, something had thawed. He woke with Lucas's head resting on his shoulder, the faint scent of cedar and cinnamon lingering between them. For once, the quiet wasn't heavy. It was peace. Lucas stirred beside him, blinking sleepily. "You're staring," he mumbled. Ethan smiled, his voice low. "Just making sure you're real." Lucas laughed softly and burrowed closer. "Pretty sure I'm not a dream. But if I am, please don't wake up." For a while, they stayed like that, wrapped in the warmth of the small cabin, sunlight leaking through the frosted windows. Felt like safety, fragile but alive. And Ethan thought, maybe this was what love was supposed to feel like, not grand gestures or redemption arcs, but quiet mornings where breathing felt easy again. By mid-morning, Lucas got up to make breakfast, humming as he moved around the kitchen. Ethan leaned against the doorway, watching him with quiet awe. The way Lucas moved, calm, confident, grounded, made the world feel less chaotic. "You know," Ethan said, "I've been thinking about something." "That sounds dangerous," Lucas teased, cracking eggs into a pan. "I want to stop hiding." Lucas froze for a second before turning. spatula in hand. You mean? I'm done letting other people tell me how to live. I'm tired of being scared. I want to introduce you to my crew, my friends, hell, even my mom. Lucas blinked, caught between surprise and disbelief. Ethan, are you sure? Ethan nodded. I don't want to keep loving you in the dark. Lucas's voice softened. Then I guess we start by turning on the lights. The first test came faster than either of them expected. 3 days later, Ethan brought Lucas to the construction site where his crew was finishing a new housing project. Most of them were old-school guys, blue-collar, loud, the kind who didn't mince words. Ethan had known them for years, which made what he was about to do feel like stepping off a cliff. When they arrived, the chatter died down instantly. Morning, Ethan said, his tone steady though his hands trembled. This is Lucas. He's my boyfriend. A few exchanged glances. Someone coughed. Then Mike, Ethan's oldest friend, whistled low. Well, I'll be damned. He wiped his hands on his jeans and stuck one out toward Lucas. Nice to meet you, man. Lucas smiled and shook it. Likewise. The silence cracked. Laughter bubbled again. Conversation picked up, and slowly, the tension dissolved. Not everyone looked comfortable, but no one said a word against it. And that was enough for now. When they left, Lucas squeezed Ethan's hand. You were brave today. Ethan smiled, exhaling. No, we were brave. But bravery didn't stop the rumors. By the end of the week, word had spread across town. The whispers got louder, the looks longer. Ethan noticed how people paused their conversations when he walked into the diner, how some clients stopped returning his calls. One afternoon, he returned to his truck to find a crude note tucked under the windshield wiper. Sick freaks like you don't belong here. He stared at it for a long time before crumpling it in his fist. Lucas found him sitting on the porch later that night, shoulders tense, cigarette burning low between his fingers. Bad day? He asked quietly. Ethan didn't answer right away. Then he handed Lucas the note. Lucas read it, jaw tightening. Cowards, he muttered. You want to leave? Start over somewhere else. Ethan shook his head. No, I built my life here. I'm not running again. Lucas crouched beside him, eyes searching his. Then we face it together. Ethan looked at him, heart aching with both love and fear. Together, he whispered. They faced it, but it wasn't easy. At the grocery store, a woman refused to bag their items. At the gas station, someone shouted a slur from across the lot. And then, one afternoon, Ethan's mother called. Ethan, she began, her voice careful, as if stepping through a minefield. I heard some things from the ladies at church. About you and a man. Ethan felt his throat tighten. Yeah, Mom. It's true. There was silence on the line. Then, I see. Another pause. You know how people can be in this town. Are you sure this is wise? He almost laughed, bitter and tired. Wise? Maybe not. But it's honest. She sighed, the kind of sigh that carried years of worry. I just don't want life to be harder for you. It already was, he said quietly. When I wasn't myself. For a moment, she said nothing. Then softly, if he makes you happy, Ethan, that's all that matters to me. Ethan swallowed hard, tears stinging. He does, Mom. He really does. It should have felt like victory, but the days that followed were a test of endurance. Lucas became Ethan's anchor, his quiet strength when everything else seemed to crumble. One night, after another exhausting day of half-finished jobs and unanswered calls, Ethan came home to find the cabin lit by candles. Lucas stood at the stove, cooking his favorite chili and cornbread. What's all this? Ethan asked, smiling faintly. Lucas shrugged, a soft grin on his lips. Just thought we could use something warm. You look like you've been fighting ghosts. Ethan walked over, resting his forehead against Lucas's shoulder. They're real enough. Then let's burn them out with good food and bad TV, Lucas said. It worked at least for the night. Weeks passed. Slowly, stubbornly, the world kept turning. The small moments, the laughter over burnt toast, the quiet drives with the radio low, The way Lucas's hand found Ethan's under the table became their new kind of victory. But the true test came one Saturday afternoon in spring. Ethan's crew was finishing a job when Mike approached him, face serious. "You got a minute?" Ethan nodded, wiping his hands on his jeans. Mike hesitated, then said, "You know I've got your back, right?" "Yeah." "Well, some of the guys been talking. Not all good things." Ethan's jaw clenched. "I figured." Mike sighed. "Look, they're old school, set in their ways. But you're the best damn foreman I ever worked with. Don't let 'em run you off." Ethan met his eyes. "I'm not going anywhere." Mike nodded, clapped his shoulder, and walked away. It wasn't approval from everyone, but it was enough. That night, Ethan found Lucas sitting on the porch steps, sketching something in a notebook. "What are you drawing?" Ethan asked, leaning over. Lucas smiled. "A house." Ethan raised a brow. "You planning to move again?" "No," Lucas said softly. "Planning to stay." He flipped the sketchbook around. It was a cabin 2 stories, wide windows, overlooking the lake. "Ours," he added. "One day." Ethan looked at it, something catching in his chest. "You really think we'll get there?" Lucas met his gaze. "We already are. But love, no matter how strong, always meets its storm." It came the next morning in the form of shattered glass. Ethan woke to the sound of breaking windows, the crash echoing from downstairs. He bolted up, heart racing, and rushed outside. The front window of Lucas's truck had been smashed, the windshield painted with the words "Freaks Get Out" in red spray paint. Lucas appeared behind him, breath-catching. "Jesus!" Ethan's hands shook with rage. "That's it. I'm calling the sheriff." The sheriff arrived within the hour. She took photos, made notes, and promised to investigate, though Ethan saw the pity in her eyes. Small towns had a way of protecting their own and not always the right ones. After she left, Ethan turned to Lucas. "This is my fault." "Don't you dare say that," Lucas snapped. "They did this, not you. I should have protected you." Lucas stepped forward, eyes fierce. "You did. You are. But I'm not some fragile thing you have to save, Ethan. I'm standing right here with you." Ethan exhaled, the fight draining from him. He reached out, pulled Lucas close, and whispered, "I just don't want to lose you." Lucas's voice broke. "Then don't push me away." They spent the rest of the day cleaning up the glass in silence. But that night, as they sat by the fire, Lucas reached for Ethan's hand. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Choosing me, choosing this." Ethan looked at him, really looked, and felt the question settle in his chest. There were moments of fear, exhaustion, heartbreak, but regret? Never. He shook his head. "Not for a second." Lucas smiled, eyes shining. "Good, because I'm not going anywhere either." A week later, Ethan got a call from a new client, a family wanting to build a lakeside home. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As he hung up, he caught Lucas watching him from the doorway. "What?" Ethan asked, grinning. Lucas tilted his head. "You look lighter." "Maybe I am." Lucas walked over, slid his arms around Ethan's waist. "I like this version of you." Ethan laughed softly. "The one that doesn't hide? The one that finally remembers he deserves happiness." Spring melted into summer. The town didn't change overnight, but bit by bit, the edges softened. A few of Ethan's old clients came back. Some offered quiet apologies, others just business cards, but Ethan took it all as progress. He and Lucas spent weekends fixing up the cabin, turning it into a home. They painted walls, built bookshelves, argued over curtains, and laughed until their sides hurt. Sometimes, at night, they'd sit on the porch watching the lake shimmer under the moonlight. "Remember that list?" Lucas asked one night. Ethan chuckled. "The cursed one or the new one?" "The old one." Ethan sighed. "Yeah. What about it?" Lucas smiled. "You know, you've undone every single one of those mistakes." Ethan glanced at him. "Even the last one?" "Especially the last one," Lucas said, leaning in. "You loved me enough." Ethan kissed him softly. Then I guess the list finally did something good. But their peace wouldn't last untouched. Late that August, Ethan's mother called again, this time asking them both to come for Sunday dinner. Lucas was nervous, though he tried not to show it. "I can handle a few awkward stares," he said as they drove. Ethan smiled. "You don't know my mom's cooking. That's the real test." When they arrived, his mother greeted them at the door. Her eyes lingered on Lucas for a heartbeat too long, then softened. "You must be Lucas," she said gently. "Come in, sweetheart." Dinner was quiet but warm. There were pauses, unsure smiles, but also laughter, hesitant, real. By dessert, Ethan caught his mother watching them, something thoughtful in her expression. As they were leaving, she touched his arm. "You look happy," she said softly. "I am," Ethan replied. She nodded, eyes glistening. "Then I'm happy too." It was the first time in years Ethan felt like everything might actually be okay. That night, back at the cabin, Lucas curled against him on the couch. "You know," he murmured, "I think we made it." Ethan smiled, tracing lazy circles on Lucas's arm. "Made it where?" "Here. To this. To being seen and still standing." Ethan kissed his temple. "Then I guess we keep standing. Together." Lucas grinned, sleepy and content. Always. Outside, the summer air hummed with crickets and distant laughter. Inside, two men who had once been broken now found peace in the simplest truth. Love, once hidden in the shadows, had finally found its light. Autumn crept in quietly that year. The air grew crisp, the lake turned silver, and the trees burned gold under the fading sun. Life had settled into something steady: morning coffees, shared routines, laughter echoing through the cabin. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. One evening, as Ethan fixed the porch railing, Lucas came out holding a letter. "You got mail," he said, handing it over. Ethan frowned, brushing sawdust off his hands. The return address made his heart stutter. Brandon Haynes. He hadn't seen that name in over a year. "Do you want me to?" Lucas began. Ethan shook his head. "No, I should read it." He sat down, unfolding the paper. Brandon's handwriting was as neat as ever. "Ethan, I heard through mutual friends that you're seeing someone. I guess I should say I'm happy for you, though part of me still wonders if it could have been used if we'd just tried harder. I found the old list the other day. Funny thing is, I realized most of those mistakes weren't yours. They were mine. Maybe that's what growing up means, understanding that love isn't about keeping score. I hope you've forgiven me. I'm trying to forgive myself. Be well. Brandon." Ethan stared at the words for a long time. The past, once sharp and heavy, suddenly felt distant, like a storm long past. Lucas sat beside him. "You okay?" Ethan nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think I finally am." He folded the letter, tucked it back into the envelope, and smiled faintly. "He's right, you know. Love isn't about keeping score." Lucas grinned. "Guess we're both failing that subject." Ethan chuckled, slipping an arm around him. "Good. I'd rather build something than count the cracks." Weeks passed. The cabin became a kind of sanctuary, not just for them, but for others too. Friends dropped by more often. Neighbors stopped pretending not to see. The town that once whispered now simply nodded. It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was no longer rejection. One Saturday, as they painted the porch, a familiar truck pulled into the driveway. Mike stepped out, holding 2 coffees. "Brought fuel," he said. "Figured you'd need it." Ethan grinned. "You're a saint." Mike sipped his own coffee, glancing between them. "You know, I didn't get it before," he said quietly. "You and him. But seeing you now, it makes sense. You look hell. You look like you finally stopped fighting the world." Ethan smiled, a lump in his throat. "Maybe I just started fighting the right battles." Mike nodded, clapped him on the shoulder, and left without another word. Lucas watched him go. That felt like progress. "It was," Ethan said. "A damn good one." That night, they sat by the lake, the reflection of stars trembling on the surface. Lucas leaned back against Ethan's chest, his voice soft. "You ever think about leaving this town?" Ethan hesitated. "All the time." But then I think if we leave every place that hurt us, we'll never have a place left to call home. Lucas nodded. So we stay. We stay. Not because we have to prove anything, but because we deserve to exist here, too. Lucas smiled, eyes shining in the starlight. Then we build our forever here. Ethan kissed the top of his head. Yeah, right here. A few days later, Lucas surprised him with something Newa sign he'd carved himself. It read, Reed and Grant Carpentry. Ethan blinked. You're kidding. Lucas laughed. Nope. You said we build things together. I figured we should make it official. Ethan ran his fingers over the letters, rough yet steady. This is. He swallowed hard. It's perfect. Lucas grinned. Told you we'd make a home out of this place. Ethan kissed him right there, the sign still warm between their hands, the scent of sawdust and pine heavy in the air. By winter, the cabin was finished. The fireplace roared. The walls were filled with photos Ethan and Lucas laughing in the snow. The crew helping with the deck. Ethan's mom visiting for Thanksgiving. Every picture was proof of something hard won. On Christmas Eve, as snow drifted outside, Lucas handed Ethan a small wrapped box. What's this? Ethan asked. Open it. Inside was a leather-bound notebook. The first page was blank except for a line at the top. The new list. Ethan looked up, smiling. You never stop teasing me about that list, do you? Lucas shook his head. Not teasing. I just thought maybe it's time we write our own together. Ethan flipped to the next page. Lucas had already started. Love without fear. Show up. Always. Never let go. Forgive the past. Keep building. Ethan laughed softly. You're getting sentimental in your old age. Lucas leaned in, voice low. Old age? I'm 2 years younger than you, Mr. Gray Hairs. Ethan smirked. You love my gray hairs. Lucas pretended to think. Debatable. They ended up laughing until tears rolled down their cheeks. Later that night, as the fire dimmed, Lucas whispered, Ethan, yeah. Do you ever think about where we'd be if you hadn't read that list again? Ethan thought for a moment. Maybe still trying to fix something that was never meant to last. Lucas nodded. Then I'm glad you did. Why? Because it led you here. To me. Ethan smiled in the dark, heart full. Then maybe the list wasn't a curse after all. Lucas's voice softened. Maybe it was the map. The following spring, they hung the sign Reed and Grant Carpentry on the fence by the road. The same people who once looked away now stopped to admire it. Kids waved when they passed. Neighbors dropped by with pie and coffee. And one afternoon, as Ethan packed tools into the truck, he noticed an older man standing by the fence, the same one who'd spat near them months ago. The man hesitated before speaking. You built that porch for the Wilsons? Yeah, Ethan said slowly. Looks good, the man muttered. Then after a pause, sorry, about before. Ethan nodded, quiet. Thank you. The man tipped his hat and walked away. Lucas came out a moment later, eyes wide. Was that? Ethan smiled faintly. Yeah, I guess even old wounds can heal. Lucas wrapped an arm around his waist. You're proof they can. That evening, they sat on the porch, the sun dipping below the horizon. Ethan turned to Lucas. You know, I used to think love was something you earned. Like if you did everything right, it would finally stay. Lucas tilted his head. And now, Ethan smiled. Now I think love isn't something you earn, it's something you protect. Something you build every day, nail by nail. Lucas's eyes softened. Then I guess we're builders in more ways than one. Ethan chuckled. Yeah. And for once, I think we finally got the blueprint right. Lucas leaned in, whispering against his lips. Then let's never stop building. Ethan kissed him slow, deep, unhurried, the kind of kiss that said we made it. Above them, the stars shimmered. The wind carried the faint sound of laughter from town, blending with the crackle of the fire. And there, on that quiet hill overlooking the lake, 2 men who had once been broken stood whole again, not perfect, but real, unashamed, and finally free. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.